Ida for cropping my Sil out of my wedding photos after she said she looked fat. Throwaway BC Sil has my maniac. My wife 27F and I 28M recently got married and it was amazing. The wedding was set on a riverside farm and so we had photo shoots outside on the fields before the ceremony. We started taking photos around noon and my sister-in-law 30F was one of the bridesmaids. Sil has always been a negative person since I met her, always trying to make small judgmental comments. While my wife is an incredibly kind person, they have very different personalities, so I never questioned why they aren't close and assumed that Sil was included in her group of bridesmaids to appease my wife's parents. Because Sil and my wife have never been very close, she was at the end of the line of bridesmaids and usually was at the edges of group photos. While taking the photos, Sil was the only person complaining about things like the sunny weather and how her dress was absorbing heat. I don't know much about dresses but it was about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Most people in the photoshoot group ignored her comments and it wasn't an issue for the rest of the day. We got the photos of both the shoot and the ceremony from the photographer 3 weeks after the wedding. We promptly sent the photos to the people in photoshoot and told them we planned on using the photos on social media. Most people thanked us for the photos but my Sil called my wife and was very angry, yelling that she looked like a fat pig in every photo she was in and demanded that we not use any of the photos with her in them. For context, Sil is bigger than my wife but not to an extreme extent. She doesn't look unhealthy and I've never heard her have body issues before but I admittedly wouldn't know much about it. In the wedding photos, she really doesn't look any different from her normal self. My wife tried to reason with her, saying she looks just as pretty as everyone else but Sil did not want to hear it. She reiterated that if we used any photo of her on social media that she would never speak to us again and would put us on blast, whatever that means. My wife was really hurt by her sister's outburst and I was very bothered that she thought she could tell us what to do with our special moment. Here's where I may be the asshole. I decided that if she had such a problem, she didn't need to be in the photos. I cropped her out and posted those versions to social media. I thought it would be fine and it was easy since she was at the edge anyway. After posting, she then called me even angrier than before and accused me of trying to erase her from the memory of the wedding. I told her I only did it to accommodate her wishes while also getting to use our own wedding photos. Sil hasn't talked to us in a week. My wife's parents are mad at us for upsetting Sil. While my wife is on my side, she thinks I could have been more mature about it. I don't think I did anything wrong and accommodated her already unreasonable request. So, am I the asshole? Decorate your apartment how I want it to be. My mom is a bit of a narcissist. At first she appears to be perfectly normal, until you get to know or live with her, which is why she can't seem to keep any friends or even her own children in contact with her. I have gone no contact as of 2023, after having enough of living with her entitlement and narcissism. I moved out between 19 and 20 years old, which is a bit uncommon since rent has skyrocketed in the area. I managed how I could with a roommate who had a well-paying job and my own job. She paid for none of my living expenses. We did everything on our own. Despite that, she's always tried to control every aspect of my life and her continuing to do that is why I chose to go no contact. I only realized that was an option through therapy and a bunch of supportive friends a few years later. Before that time, I was still listening to her and she was able to guilt me into a lot of things I didn't want. When I moved out, I was striving to decorate my new apartment in any way I saw fit. I had so many ideas. I immediately hung up all the posters I had in my room in the hallway. The walls had a few cracks and I wanted to cover them. We used red and blue thumbtacks. We didn't have a kitchen table yet, but we never ate at the table anyways. I wanted something either really small so that it wouldn't take up space or something multifunctional. We ended up looking for a pool table with a solid cover over the top so that we could put a vinyl tablecloth over it to protect it from stains. My dad loved the idea. My mom, not so much. She hated how I decorated my new apartment. She claimed it looked childish with my fairy lights across the ceiling. Dad thought it looked like a bachelor pad and had no issue with it. Gotta love Dad. She kept making comments about how I needed to take down the posters and get paintings I didn't like or need. She kept telling me I needed to paint something I paint and have it framed for the hallway. Every single time I visited or came home for more of my things. It was a similar conversation each time of how she thought my apartment was ugly, how she would have never done it that way, how she needed to come in and fix it, how no adult would ever chose to have it like that. She was wanting me to entirely redecorate my entire apartment, which would have costed hundreds of dollars to hire a painter or buy stuff I didn't need from Goodwill. I kept trying to gently tell her that I liked how my apartment looked and that I was an adult who could make their own choices. We hadn't moved all of my things inside the apartment yet. It was really horrible how many mean comments she was making on how I had no taste, how I needed to take everything down and start over, how her house looked so much better. For the most part I had ignored it. I was very much used to her hating everything about what I did. Then she stopped making those comments and started to take me to yard sales in hopes of finding something I needed. It was a plot of her own, of course. She found a kitchen table and chairs that she fell in love with. I didn't want them. I was looking for a pool table. She bought them all, and when Dad told her she wasn't getting rid of his kitchen table, she gifted them to me. I was raised to always accept gifts she gave me or she would raise absolute hell. She would make it her mission to make me feel guilty and like the worst person in the world if I didn't appear to like her gifts. There have been times she returned some of my Christmas presents because I didn't have the correct reaction to them. If I didn't have a huge smile on my face and enthusiastically thanking her for what she had gotten me, it would disappear from my present pile and I'd never see it again. There were other times she told my sibling to steal it from me and I would never get the chance to wear the shirt, play with the toy, etc. just because I didn't act eternally grateful or put on a huge show of gratitude to make her have any semblance of self-esteem. She thought she was entitled to control my reaction to her giving me a gift. Other times, she thought she was entitled to other people's gifts and steal my dad's, or my siblings' presents because she thought she looked better in them or just simply wanted them. I was never allowed to own a console because she believed I would spend less time with her. In reality, I found other ways to not spend time with her that wasn't technology. She just didn't want to give me something I'd used to ignore her with. I ended up saving every piece of birthday money to buy myself a laptop at 16, with no help from her because she would often tell people at my birthday parties to not gift me money, claiming I'd spend it all. When each person approached me about what I wanted from my birthday and teased me about not being good with money, I'd tell them my plans and show them my stash of money I'd saved thus far. Of course, she took to stealing my money on the occasion because she didn't want me to have independence or a way to ignore her. I was wanting to save up for a car or a computer, something I'd need when I was an adult. I would keep a record of my money in a little notebook which detailed the number of bills, coins, and amount, which is how I found out she was stealing my money. Dad made her feel so bad, she stopped doing it. Dad often put a stop to things like that, but he couldn't mediate everything due to working all the time. This is just a few reasons why I had to be very careful of the gifts she gave me and the entire reason I begrudgingly accepted the gift of the kitchen table. Otherwise, she'd tell the entire extended family that I was on drugs and that I needed to come back home and attempt to get me in a place where she could control me. That kitchen table ended up being very abused when I adopted a stray cat who didn't know where the litter box was. She figured it out after peeing on the table a few times. I was never more proud. The table and chairs ended up in the dumpster when I moved. Most of the chairs had broken because of the climate and wood not being compatible with each other. As for the posters, I did not replace them with paintings. They stayed where I put them until I moved to another state. The fairy lights did not last because she would come visit and secretly cut them with scissors. I gave up on replacing them. I didn't realize she was doing it until years later when she admitted to it. I have never felt more free after buying my own home and decorating it with posters, multicolored thumbtacks, and Christmas lights bought on sale. Playful face. They really aid the kids in finding the bathroom in the dark. And the teens love the Star Wars posters. I'm planning on hanging up some different ones soon. Hope you like them, Mom. Happy cat face. TLDR. Mom thought she was entitled to decorate my own apartment, that she has no monetary or legal control over, by means of sabotage and attempt to get it to look normal. Sorry, I didn't grow up to decorate my house in sad beige and boring paintings of flowers. Ida for giving permission for my stepson to live with his maternal grandparents and not fighting for him. My husband is on hospice right now. He doesn't have long left. We're falling apart, all of us, and now I'm fighting with my husband's parents, so please give me some perspective here. My husband and I got married a decade ago. He was a single dad, no longer dating his son's mom. They were never married. They shared custody and my husband was always a very involved father in his son's life, and that did not change when he met and married me. My stepson is currently 13. His mom died in an accident when he was 7, which is when he started to live with us full time. It was a struggle for him. He wanted his mom, missed his mom, and he told me on several occasions that he didn't hate me, but he didn't want me. He wanted his mom. He never really connected with his younger siblings. My husband and I have 3 kids under 8 together, and while he always adored his dad, I know he never really healed fully from his mom's death. He was in grief therapy, we did family therapy, but he was never truly happy here once his mom died. And then my husband got sick. My stepson has been so afraid to lose his dad, and when we knew it was coming, the discussion of where he lives was brought up by my stepson. My husband wanted me to finish raising my stepson, for all 4 kids to stay together. He told my stepson no to living with his maternal grandparents in another state. He was very against the idea and fearful that my stepson would just let all contact end. But I always felt like my stepson would be happier, more settled, more okay, with the family he wanted to be with. Even with his dad here, and he loves his dad. I know he does. It was never enough to make him happy with us. I told my husband this. We argued about it once. I promised my stepson those months ago that I would honor his wishes and he could live with his maternal grandparents. Broke my heart, but I know this is what he truly wants. I think the only reason he wasn't asking to live with them sooner is his dad. The end is almost on us now. We don't know how long my husband has, but not long at all, maybe even just days. My stepson's maternal grandparents flew in the day we were told it was coming fast. My stepson decided to stay with them. My husband's parents were furious despite my stepson being here every day still. My husband is sad but has accepted and understands. He also gave his blessing though reluctant, but his parents are mad. They're furious that I'm letting my stepson go live with his maternal grandparents. They told me I should fight for him, should make him stay. They told me he will never love or accept his siblings if he ends all contact now at 13. Mill screamed at me for 20 minutes yesterday. I hate fighting with them. Ida. I was in a battle for high school ranking for nearly 2 years without knowing it. I was very ill during 8th grade in the US, so that's the last year of grade school, before high school, and missed a few months completely, and was only allowed to do half days for another month or so. Even though I was doing homework, I wasn't getting the in-person instruction. And I'm more of a visual auditory learner. So needless to say my grades weren't great, and therefore placement in high school was at a remedial level my freshman year. But they had figured out what was wrong with me and the medication had worked. So I had no attendance issues and had nearly a 4.0 GPA. I was the only person from my grade school to go to this high school. The city line was literally our back fence. So I had to make friends with people who had gone to the same grade school their entire lives. I finally made a few friends. Most of them were in the marching band even though I wasn't. Unbeknownst to me, this was also when this feud started. Another member of the band who was friends with some of my little circle was very invested in being in the top 10 of the class. And suddenly she was at 11. Because I was in the top 10. I don't know why she had no issues with the other 9. I obviously knew I was in the top 10, actually was salutatorian at the end, but ranked I think 4th because 3 people were valedictorians with perfect 4.0 GPAs but had no idea this was bothering anyone except me. To get to the schools I wanted to apply to, I needed to be in the good classes, especially math. I have always and will always hate math, but sophomore year I had to take algebra and geometry to get caught up. I guarantee that year took several years off my life and I'm amazed I didn't get gray hair. But I succeeded. It wasn't until junior year, when we were starting ACT prep classes, that one of my friends made an offhand comment to the effect of, if you do well on the ACTs then Crystal will have to stop saying you cheated your way to the top. What now? Literally the entire group I was sitting with, about 9 people, are just staring at me until someone finally said, you know Crystal has been saying you took those easy classes freshman year to boost your GPA, right? No, in fact I did not. Everyone looked very uncomfortable. I was still trying to make sense of that, when someone helpfully chimed in, yeah, she's been talking all summer about how when she gets a better ACT score than you it will prove you shouldn't be in the top 10. Okay, so does she think she gets to take my spot if she gets a higher score? To this day I have no clue why this was so important to her, but eventually the day came where we got our scores back. And she was telling the whole school about her 31, which is a very good score. She was extremely intelligent, which is why I was so baffled that this mattered to her. And I just said, nothing, because I knew she would ask me in front of everyone. And while I thought the whole thing was ridiculous, I had a bit of a petty streak. So during lunch, she stood up at the end of our lunch table and basically yelled, Clara, did you hear I got a 31? Sure did, congratulations. She just stood there a minute, while I drank my soda. Then finally, well, I haven't heard from anyone what you got. Don't you want to share? I don't mind. I got a 32. It was like watching a balloon deflate. It was certainly not my proudest moment, but at the same time if you're going to be in intense competition for something, you should maybe at least let your opponent know about it.